from KC24, your local election headquarters, with your host, Evan Onstadt. This is Sunday Morning Matters.
Hey there, good morning to you. Thanks so much for starting off your Sunday with us. We appreciate it. Now, for those of you who watch this program consistently, first of all, thank you very much. But you know that we've been watching and waiting for Senator Kamala Harris to throw her name in the race for president. And this week, the California Democrat made it official.
I love my country. I love my country. And I feel a sense of responsibility to stand up and fight for the best of who we are.
Harris announced her 2020 bid on Monday, Martin Luther King Day. Her campaign slogan, Kamala Harris for the people. Now, she joins a quickly growing field of Democratic candidates, but she says her campaign will be different.
When it comes to talking about how we fight for the American people and have leadership in this country that is focused on the needs of the people instead of self-interest, I'm prepared to fight that way, and I believe it will be a winning fight.
I think this is going to be a really interesting campaign to follow here because Harris has been criticized by conservatives and progressives. Progressives, they look at her record as a prosecutor and a California attorney general with issues like the death penalty, the three strikes laws. Conservatives, they don't like her outspoken criticism of President Trump. They accuse her of using her time in the Senate to grandstand with this run at president in mind all along. Let's talk about this with our panel today. Really excited about this one. She is the president and CEO of the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. Good to have Tara Lynn Gray back on the program. Good to see you.
Thank you, Evan. Good to see you.
Absolutely. He's a Republican political strategist. He's managed some of the biggest campaigns of the Valley's top conservatives. Alex Tavlian, first time here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Evan. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here, I should say. And she covers education for the Fresno Bee, a wonderful reporter. Alex Appleton, good to have you back.
Thank you, Evan.
So let's talk about Kamala Harris right now. Any surprises, any surprises in the Fresno Bee newsroom when she threw her hat in the ring? I don't think there were any here.
No surprises here. Honestly, she became a national name and face during the Kavanaugh hearings, and it seemed very likely that she was going to use some of that capital to consider a presidential run.
Absolutely. You know, I use the term grandstanding. That's been a big accusation thrown her way, Alex Tavlian. I'm going to separate the two Alexes here. So, Alex, I mean, that does come up a lot. People either love her for this or they say that she's just playing politics and trying to make herself the star here. What are conservatives saying about this?
Very much the latter. You know, they look at her as someone who has a very thin record, you know, someone who really jumped from DA of San Francisco to Attorney General in California to the Senate with not a lot of accomplishments that you can point to. And what we're starting to see with this announcement is a lot of news organizations, especially in California, that have had a long record of what she's been doing are finally starting to crack open and really look into it in a way we didn't see a year and a half ago when she ran for U.S. Senate.
Give me one of those examples.
I mean, they're really starting to look at her use of not just using the death penalty, but also other more enhanced sentencing methods, her failure to investigate certain crimes. And the biggest one of all, naturally, is the lack of oversight when it came to sexual harassment within her own department, especially amongst the highest level advisors that she has on her staff. You
know, it's interesting because politics and the way that we look at things and some of these criminal justice reforms, Tara, they have changed so much in just the little bit of time that she's left state office and moved into national politics. Things have changed. I'm curious if you hold that as a negative against her as she goes forward and if you think that could bite her in any way.
Well, I certainly don't think that she's responsible for the system as a whole. So I think that the changes are reflective of many different things. The things I like to focus on relative to Kamala is the string of firsts that she's had. She's been a top cop. She's been a prosecutor. She, you know, has reached, you know, levels that other African American women or African Indian women have not necessarily attained. And I think as a woman candidate for president, she is going to face many of the same issues that Hillary faced when Hillary was running. The country may not yet be ready for a woman to be in pursuit of that top spot. So I think she's going to face some of the same difficulties.
A woman from California as well, and I'm curious, with the way California is used as really as a weapon by the president currently, I'm curious if California will help her or hurt her in this, Alex.
Sure. Well, what I've heard is that the Democrats will want a candidate who can bring with them a conservative state, and that's not necessarily who she is.
Yeah, I mean, California's already in the bag for whoever is running against President Trump. So that's going to be interesting. Alex, what do you think? Do you think this could be something that really gets played against her? For example, she's not even going to have her campaign headquarters in California. I think they're going to be in Baltimore.
That's correct, yeah. And in fact, I had said that earlier this week that I was very disappointed. You know, someone from California running a presidential campaign, a chance to show the West Coast, and you go to Baltimore of all places. I think in the Democratic primary, it's not going to matter so much. I think California is a leading bastion for liberalism and the progressive viewpoint. I think when you get to a general election, that completely changes. And she's going to have to, if she wound up with the nomination, a lot of things are going to have to change to reorient her and almost like Mitt Romney, etch-a-sketch her way to the middle.
Is she already in the middle in some aspects, though, since she does take on some criticism from the progressives who look back at her criminal justice, although she says that she's, that's been a strong point of hers. What do you think is the biggest strength that she has, Tara, moving forward, especially considering how many people are going to be running here, including some very smart, accomplished women in this race as well, other senators? Yeah.
Well, I think that when we look at her record, I mean, she's left of Obama on a lot of things, healthcare. So I think that in a lot of ways she is more progressive than some folks think that she is. But when we look at her stance on crime, which is something that the Republicans have made a very significant issue in races prior, I think that she's more like them. I think she's more, on the right relative to that. So I think that it's too soon to really say too much about how she comes out, how she fares out in the race.
Alex, it's interesting because when people immediately start talking about Kamala Harris, when the first articles are being written, they bring up, a black woman, and I'm curious, is that doing a disservice, you think, in any way? Or do you think that's just a natural part of where maybe even the Democratic Party is right now, is that they want to see minorities, however, female or somebody, an African American? Is that just where the Democratic Party wants to be?
Possibly. I think in a crowded field like this, any sort of thing that sets you apart from other candidates might be a positive, especially when I think it was 94% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton. Chalking that up as one of your attributes is maybe not necessarily a bad thing.
Tara, how do you think this gets played? Because I know that Kamala Harris, she hates the term identity politics. She sees that as being a nasty term, that it's unfair. How do you see this playing?
Well, she can't deny she's an African-American woman.
Well, no. No, but I mean, do you think that gets too much play when people start talking about her as, oh, this could be a historic thing? And
well, it will be historic. It will be historic like many of her other firsts. But I do think that we have to get to the substance of the candidate. And I think that she has to show up and show out in the same way that Obama showed up and showed out. Incredibly talented man, incredibly talented president. And I think that she has to do the same thing. Yes, we want diversity, but we don't want diversity at the sake of quality. And that's not to say that she's not a quality candidate. I happen to think that she is. But she's going to have to be a lot of things to a lot of different people in order to have the appeal that my colleagues here, have just mentioned. I don't, however, think that she needs to base everything here in California. If she's got California in the bag, you don't climb a hill by staying at the bottom. No. You go to where the hill is and you climb the hill. So, don't stay in the territory you've already taken. Go take the new territory.
That's a new military leader. I like this, Tara. Well, Tav, let me just ask you this then. Yeah. As a Republican strategist, if you were running Donald Trump's re-election campaign, do you want to see Kamala Harris be the name that pops up against you, honestly?
I don't think so. I don't think I would want to see someone like Kamala Harris.
You think she'd be dangerous if you're the president?
I think so. She's not, she's a formidable person. She didn't get here by accident. She is clearly, she's a very articulate person. I was reading this morning an article in Politico about her race for DA. She flat out, knifed both of the candidates running against her in one forum and just exposed everything that they were in one forum and basically won the race in a single town hall. that is dangerous. That's a very dangerous candidate. So she's someone who it does pose a threat, you know, and I think there's a lot of candidates in the Democratic field that have announced and haven't announced that pose a similar threat to the president. What it boils down to is the missteps to get there. So there's a lot of overnights in politics, and that's a lifetime. But that causes the people make mistakes over the course of a campaign, and you got to be ready for it.
It's going to be really fun for us here in California, you know, as a journalist, being able to watch the California candidate that really has a chance here probably to get that nomination. We're just going to see where this ends up going from here.